We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Okay, hi everybody. It's really good to be here with you. As Shauna knows, I've been in some somewhat contentious meetings lately where people were upset at me. So I'm thinking that's maybe not going to happen here. And it just feels so nice to be with a friendly crowd. But we are here for the Awakening Together weekly gathering. And today I've called it The Truth About Fear. And in fact, I'll be talking a little bit about this contentious crowd of people as we go through today's homily. Here's the description that I wrote for today's homily. Fear fools us. We think it knows. We think it protects us. However, it is more often faulty than accurate in its predictions. So why do we continue to listen to it? In this weekly gathering, Rev. Regina Dawn Akers will look at fear, how it functions, and why we do well to question it each time it arises. And so we're going to begin by saying hi to each other on the chat while Marisol plays Awakening by Deborah Pramal and Mitten. Let me share our statement of purpose. We are an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And the core value that I selected today is our fifth core value. We accept all forms as temporary appearances permitted through enduring awareness of self. And think about fear, even intense fear, as I read that first sentence. We accept all forms as temporary appearances and permitted through enduring awareness of self. We live this value by honoring all appearances and all experiences, by honoring all appearances and all experiences while continually reflecting on changeless truth. So before we get into the devotional part of our weekly gathering, we are going to do some announcements, and I will be making the first announcement. Thank you, Rhoda. I wish I could be there for the quarterly meeting. I leave this afternoon for a week of vacation, but I will be checking out the recording, I promise. And I'm also very excited about the Sangha-led retreats. It's been a long time coming. It's about time. So that's good. I'm excited to hear how that goes afterwards. So let me know, whoever's in charge. All right, so we're going to move into our opening song now, which is from Frozen 2. It's The Next Right Thing, and it's sung by Kristen Bell. This song, I just want to point out, is actually about grief. If you've seen Frozen 2, at this point in the film, she believes her sister has died. So it's about grief. But it's one of the two songs that have been playing in my mind this last 4 weeks when I've been going through, at the level of form, what I believe is the most difficult situation I've gone through in my entire life. So while I've been going through this difficult situation, this song has been playing in my head. I'll be honest, the other song that's been playing in my head is No More Mr. Nice Guy by Alice Cooper. So I'll talk about that too and how that's actually been guidance. But I decided not to play the Alice Cooper song. We'll go with the one from Frozen. So Marisol, if you could play that, please. So I will move into the prayer now. It's a simple prayer. I want to share everything I have to share honestly. And I ask for help with that because I don't hold on to the past in the way that I used to, so memories get fuzzy, and I need help bringing the clarity to those memories in order to share this story honestly. I want to speak truth and only truth, and I want to speak it in a way that is clear so that those who are listening receive the clarity of that truth. And then other than that, this is just completely surrendered. Again, I ask for guidance, spontaneity, perfection in every word that's spoken during this homily today. Amen. It's nice to ask for help, isn't it? Takes the burden off. All right, so we're going to go into the reading. And I asked Joe to read. It was kind of funny because Joe Schmitz has been the reader here lots of times. Who knows? He may be even the most commonly used reader. I don't know. But I've never used him. And it occurred to me, Joe's never been my reader. And I think one reason I haven't used him is because so many other people do. So I was trying to get more variety in. But I thought, well, I've never used him. He's a good friend. I'm going to ask him. So I asked him and he emailed back. Joe, I'm going to let you tell them when you start the reading what you emailed back. But Joe is going to be reading Dealing with Fear by Liz Cronkite. Take it away, Joe.
Thank you, Regina. Before I say anything, a wonderful prayer. I just love that prayer. It just warmed my heart. And as far as using me, y'all can use me until you use me up, right? That's how that song goes. So, yeah, Regina had emailed me, and what I responded was something like, earlier that morning, maybe shortly before she sent the email, the thought occurred to me that Regina has never asked me to read as far as I recall. It's just came out of nowhere. It just kind of floated in from nowhere. I mean, and who knows what the narrative was that was going on before that, but it just popped in. And then this email comes in. And so, that whole one mind thing. So just a beautiful coincidence. And this reading has been perfect for me to be with for the last few days, Regina. So I much appreciate it. It was meant to be. And here we go. This is from Liz Cronkite. The title is Dealing with Fear. And Liz writes, last week's article was about finding that heaven is not an extraordinary state, but is the everyday, ordinary consciousness you are used to. I get asked if now that I see this, do I experience heaven all the time? No, I do not, because ego is still falling away. But I sense heaven here and have moments and episodes of it. In fact, lately I've been dealing with bouts of over-the-top fear when certain things, quote, go wrong or appear that they may. And in this next sentence, the break is in capital letters. What changed after the break or shift in consciousness was the covers were pulled from ego, from fear. What I once would have felt as a niggle of irritation or discomfort because of something practical I had to deal with, I now know was a fear I feel fully now. Fear used to be, parentheses, mostly denied or masked or distracted from. I suspect some of Liz's physical issues are due to years of the fullness of fear being repressed. Fear had to go somewhere. It had to be expressed in some way, and that ended up in the body. But now there is nothing to repress fear, so it is fully exposed, fully felt, sometimes disproportionately, but it passes quickly. It is understood to be happening in this greater space, to be just an appearance in consciousness in heaven. Liz had chronic anxiety and chronic depression and anxiety and had been diagnosed with panic disorder. And these were dealt with up to a certain point through years of spiritual practice. But ego was still there, so fear was still asserted by it. But since the break in 2018, when ego fell away, ego's programming has been winding down, and the power and energy it put into inducing and exasperating fear is sometimes not here at all, and sometimes here, but much less than it used to be. This episode reveals how much Liz's fear response is the body, parentheses, brain's conditioning. Fear has come to seem something like a habit. The mind is much quieter, and many times fearful thoughts seem empty, like they are a facade. There is nothing behind them. And fear still occurs here in response to lovely experiences of truth, too, as though the body was conditioned by ego over decades to respond to truth that way. My approach to fear now is to treat it like a physiological response that the body needs to unlearn. Something discovered in this process is how Liz's former baseline normal was fear. Fear was always lurking, tainting every moment. So to be without fear, if possible, would be wholly new. There has not been any, parentheses, practice here for the past few years, but now Liz has moved to address the body's fear conditioning. When fear arises and does not look to be moving off, the practice is what I learned dealing with panic disorder. A lot of self-talk to counter the fearful negative talk that ego induces, or from a brain in fight or flight. I cannot emphasize enough how helpful self-talk is for dealing with anxiety and fear. It is not a quick fix, but if I persist, fear and anxiety back off. I recover much quicker overall than I used to. But I would not be surprised if it took years, maybe the rest of Liz's life, to deal with a fear-conditioned body. There's been a sense here for a while of approaching a significant falling away. And I believe that is what is occurring now with this outsized fear. I have felt this before in the past 7 years since the break. I've seen what seemed like solid blocks crumble and take with them a significant part of the former reality. The largest of these dealt with projection and the so-called holy relationship. And what followed on from that was deflation of ego's spirituality, which I have shared these past few months. What is occurring now seems to be as significant and about the reality made by fear. I used to think that enlightenment would come, ego would fall away, and that would be it. Bliss. But no, there were 7 increasingly uncomfortable years between the enlightened mind arriving and the moment ego fell away. And since, a process of illusions rising fully to conscious awareness before falling away that has, so far, taken 7 more years. I'm not sharing my experience to scare you. It seems there is no one way that this occurs. Some seem to drop in one fell swoop, but that is rare. Some seem to drop ego in one fell swoop, but that is rare. Most seem to experience some process of undoing ego from the mind and body after a distinct moment when ego falls away. I share my experience because if it happens for you, some of my experiences may be familiar and validating. And because it is a process of undoing. So if your process is as uncomfortable, know that discomfort and fear pass through. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So this reading was pretty amazing to me because there are some things here that are very similar to my experience. And Liz Cronkite and I, we've been aware of each other for many years, and we've only talked once or twice. But when we have talked, one thing that we have shared is how aligned our paths seem to be in many ways. So it's kind of interesting having somebody out there that is such a close mirror. Again, there are other parts of our path that are very different, but we've both noticed this for years. It's interesting because she says that her ego fell away in 2018. I word that a little differently. I say my lower ego fell away, and for me it was 2019. But that's still a fairly similar step-by-step stage. Another thing that seems different between Liz and I is prior to my lower ego falling away, I went through a significant purification process, which I've taught all about here, and Jacqueline and Connie have been, going over that process, which is in those early teachings. So that's all documented. Liz seemed to go through purification much, much later and is maybe still going through some purification that I went through early on. So, all these things vary. There's a similarity between the two of us, and then there's these very distinct differences. But I have not experienced fear to any real degree. I mean, I think I've mentioned to y'all, there have been thoughts before when I was taking Ellie out to the dog park in the middle of the night at Fort Condos, and then she alerts on something. I know there's something there and I can't see what it is. There's like this fear that shoots through the body. Is it a bear? Is it a mountain lion? Is it a kitty cat? I don't know. So there've been these, I would call these little moments, but there has not been this fear just hanging in the environment, panicking the body in years, many, many years. So when this came across me recently, it was very interesting. What appeared to be the external cause, the external trigger, is, as many of you know, George, Shauna, and I live at Fort Condominiums in Levita. Jacqueline used to live there. And the decks and stairs to that building are in terrible condition. And we have been ordered by the town inspector to demolish them and rebuild them. And I have the pleasure of being the head of that project. So So in the last year, some of the things I've been doing is working with an engineer to get us structural plans. And then, and Shauna has joined me in this, talking to contractors, getting bids. And we got to the point in October of this year where we had bids from 4 contractors. Now, the members along the way have been somewhat apathetic. I mean, they knew the project was going on, but, they weren't overly involved. Until they saw the price tag. Once that price tag hit, some people began panicking. And especially some first floor residents. Now, I want to point out that does not include George. For those of you who know that George lives on the first floor, he and his wife have been 100% supportive the entire way. But there were some other first floor residents who got the idea that since they do not have decks and stairs, they should not have to pay that price. And they began steps towards legal action. One of them even sent a letter saying that the current board, which would include Shauna and me, have been acting in bad faith. There were lots of emails. I mean, not everybody was taking legal action, but there were certainly lots of emails of people who were upset and highly resistant. One member, because she really genuinely just simply can't afford this. Other people, even though I think they can't afford it, just because they don't want to. So it's been this storm for the last 4 weeks. Hold on, Ellie is pacing outside, so contemplate that part of the story while I let Ellie in. Come on, Ellie. Come on. Okay. So as I got into this part of the project, where a number of people are very upset, very resistant, and even taking some legal action or first steps in legal action process to fight it, I began digging in, doing more research. That's learning what the facts really are for myself. And the way we had interpreted the documents that this project needs to be split evenly by everyone, it was true and was in the end confirmed by the lawyer. That's just the way it goes. Whether it seems fair or not, that's the way it goes. But what I came into contact with that started this fear response in me was the liability we are all facing if we don't get these decks and stairs repaired. Right now, the cost, I can tell you the cost, it's going to be slightly under $25,000 per unit. And that's a scary cost for a lot of people. But what showed up in my research that was very clear was this could be $1 million per unit if we don't move forward with this project, and if somebody gets seriously hurt or killed and we are sued. We even have documentation that shows we're aware of the danger, how dangerous our decks and stairs are, which means the insurance company could choose not to pay. And that could be on us. We could be talking about an amount that could literally ruin our lives. It made the $25,000 look cheap by comparison. But convincing others of that was not quite so easy. So the situation that I found myself in was not only being the center of this storm, because I'm the one leading the project, so I'm the one everybody's emailing, I'm the one the legal letters are coming to. So not only being the center of this storm, but looking at the possibility, the members have to vote to approve this project, by the way, according to our covenants. Looking at the possibility, in fact, at one point it looked like a probability that they would not vote, and that we would have this situation on our hands that could result in something much, much worse. So this is what got the heart beating, was discovering that information, which really I hadn't even thought about before, to be honest. I was just doing one thing after another. So this happened in the initial storm of emails. This is before anybody took legal action. This happened in the initial storm of emails when people got very upset at the price tag. And I don't know how many emails there were, 20 emails within a morning. it was, and everybody was CC'd on it. And I actually sent an email to the owners telling them that right now my heart is beating like I'm climbing the sand dunes. And some of you have climbed the sand dunes with me, so you know how hard that heart can beat. I said, right now my heart is beating like I'm climbing the sand dunes, and all I'm doing is sitting in a chair. I'm taking the weekend off, and fortunately they all respected it. I don't think I got another email all weekend. They started up again on Monday, but they gave me the weekend off. And I was shocked, I think it's fair to say, at the amount of fear going through my body and mind, because I just haven't experienced anything like this in years. Now I have before, but not in many, many years. So I started journaling about this. And one thing that I remember was having guidance to describe what the fear felt like in the body. And so I paused and I looked at this, fairly intense fear. And let me just tell you what else was also scaring me. This house that I live in is co-owned by me and my partner, but he paid all the money. I don't want to get sued and lose the house that he paid for. Beyond that, my name is on my daughter's house. So I was looking at how, a major lawsuit could not only ruin my life, but the life of my partner and my daughter who have nothing to do with this. So you can see, I mean, I'm sure you guys can imagine how this was affecting the body. So I looked, when the guidance came to look and just write down in a very neutral way what was going on with the body. What I wrote down was, there was this tingling sensation in the chest and belly. And it's interesting because the mind had said, I can't stand this. I can't stand this. I looked and I thought, that's not true. I can stand it, an intense tingling. It was an intense tingling sensation, but I would still use the word tingling. That's not true. I can handle this. I also began to really catch lies, absolute lies in the mind. Like one time I was doing an email and I looked up, and when I looked up, my mind said, I'm terrified. And I was like, wait a minute. No, I'm not. Like that's a lie. In fact, that reminded me of the elevator moment in Revolver with Jake Green when his mind was telling him how small it is, and how he should be very, very scared. He's like, you're not me. I could feel that clearly when my mind said, I'm terrified. And I'm like, no, that's just not true. It's just not true. So I started catching these little lies in the mind. I started noticing that it was just tingling in the body. And I'm journaling about this. And I also noticed that in spite of the intense fear, this is what's interesting. In spite of the intense fear, I was not in that intense fear like I would have been 20 years ago. Like there was a distinct difference. There was awareness of the fear, but not, it was like the fear is here and the awareness is not only around it, but through it. But there's this awareness of the fear rather than this being what feels like me and the fear being doing this. That was kind of the difference, right? And it was a distinct difference. So I noticed that as well. And again, I journaled on all of that. Well, fast forward, I don't know, a few days, a week, I don't really know. I still come into my contemplation, my meditation room every day. I contemplate, I meditate. I have these gorgeous mornings. If you saw my view, it doesn't hurt. Just gorgeous, beautiful mornings. And I had a morning like that. It was a Sunday morning. Where I was just blissed out. I mean, I was just really blissed out, just feeling fabulous, and I don't remember who the weekly gathering was that morning, but I sat listening to that weekly gathering and continued to feel blissed out throughout the entire gathering. And at the end of the gathering, the guidance came in to describe what blissed out feels like. I was like, oh my God, you know how I described it? Intense tingling. In the chest. I'm like, I could see it was the exact same feeling as fear. There was no difference. The only difference was the mind's story about the outer situation and what was going on, but the body sensation, the one that fear had told me, I can't stand this, I'm now sitting back and loving because I'm calling it bliss. And it was the exact same feeling. There was literally no difference. I'm not exaggerating. Remember, I prayed for honesty and truth, right? It was the exact same feeling. Now, what was interesting that day, that feeling stayed all day for some reason. But throughout the day, things were happening. Like throughout the day, there were times when I was just, we had recently decorated the house for Christmas, and I was just doing nothing but sitting and staring at the Christmas tree lights, and I felt the bliss. And then an email would come in, a somewhat, threatening email. And my mind would have the thought about the liability again. The feeling would not change an iota. But the mind started calling it fear. And I was able to sit back and watch this happen multiple times that day. Talk about a gift. The feeling was constant. The interpretation of the feeling changed based on what was happening in the outside. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Fear is not real. I have to say that would also mean bliss is not real. Both sides of that coin, temporary appearances arising. But the interesting thing was, we love the bliss. I mean, who here would say they hate the bliss? We love the bliss, right? We don't love the fear. We believe the fear even more than we believe the bliss. When the fear kicks in, the amount of belief that we give to it it's just ridiculous. And what I saw through this experience that day is there's no truth to it. It is purely mental interpretation. And in fact, I wrote down that day, okay, what are the facts? Like if we take, like fear's talking about, and fear speaks, fear's talking about how this situation could not be approved by the owners. We could not do the decks and stairs project, which could result in somebody being seriously injured or killed, which could result in a lawsuit, which could result in the insurance company not paying the liability because of our documentation about how dangerous how dangerous the decks and stairs are, which could result in, you guys hear all these could result in, which could result in my life being ruined, Ron's life being ruined, Jasmine's life being ruined. Those weren't facts, not one of them. The facts were, that right now, I don't know what's going to happen. Right now, we have, some very upset owners who don't want to do this project, but I do not know what's going to happen. That was the only fact I could find. And that's when this song that we played at the opening, Just Do the Next Right Thing, started popping in my mind. And it continued to play as these weeks played out. When people would send these emails or I would receive these certified letters or letters from a lawyer or whatever, it was just do the next right thing. And the heart would start beating again. The feelings would show up in the body. And I would say, yep, I see you. I would literally set it aside and step into what's the next right thing. And I was able to take this process step by step by step. Now, let me tell you how No More Mr. Nice Guy played out too. And this will be very interesting for some of you guys. There's still that part of the nature, the human nature, that wanted to be nice, that wanted to extend something to these people that would make them feel better. And it became apparent through the song No More Mr. Nice Guy that needed to be set aside just like the fear needed to be set aside. What I needed to stay with were the facts. Just the facts, the next right thing, the facts, the next right thing. I couldn't lean into the fear, nor could I lean into the person that could make everybody feel better. I'm going to call that the hero, although that word never really showed up in my mind. But, the one that, hey, they're going to like me because I can do this and this and this for them, right? The hero. So I could be the victim or the hero. And both were wrong. Do the next right thing. No more Mr. Nice Guy. And I don't know, Shauna was my witness. I don't know. Do you think I did that okay, Shauna? Go ahead and speak up. Take the mic.
Oh, yeah, spectacularly.
Yeah. Yeah. I just stayed with that guidance. And in the end, the lawyer showed up saying that we were doing exactly what we were supposed to be doing. It seems to, at least for now, have quieted down. You never know what's going to come next. I actually have another certified letter that I have to go pick up at the post office, but it could be one that just came late rather than a new argument because the meeting was only Thursday night. So you don't know what will happen next, but we ended up having a meeting Thursday night after this was resolved by the lawyer, and we ended up having all 13 owners participate, which has never happened before. And we end up voting 10 in favor of the project, 3 against. And so for now, we're going to be moving forward. How am I doing on time? Okay. And getting this project done is important to me. I don't want to see anybody hurt or killed, whether I get sued or not, right? I mean, this is important. This has to be done. But what I observed, let me share some of what was in this reading. Let's see. Liz says, Liz's fear response is the body's, and then she puts in parentheses, the brain's conditioning. Now, some of you know I have been studying the brain for approximately a year now. And I've learned quite a bit, and some of that has been written into the 4 Principles of God. And some of you guys have talked about it here, but the only place where I actually wrote it down as a teaching is in the revised 4 Principles of God. But what has happened in this last year is I have come to observe the brain as a biological artificial intelligence. I think that we make the mistake of thinking it's intelligence. It's a biological artificial intelligence. And in fact, I've also been talking to AI more in the last year, and I've gotten to know AI really well. And there are some things I've learned about AI that I have learned equally apply to the brain. For example, AI is only as good as the information you give it. When some of these people were setting up their legal challenges, first floor owners, I don't know exactly what questions they asked AI, but you could tell when the information came, when the letters came, that in order to get their information, they had talked to AI. I even told Shauna that. So it looks like they're talking to AI and they didn't give AI all the information it needed. So it's giving them bad information. But, my guess is, please hear those words. My guess is they went in and asked a question like, is there anything in Colorado law that would show that a first floor owner does not need to pay for decks and stairs that they do not use? And so AI went and cherry picked these sentences that were completely out of context, got these people all excited, and they wrote their letter based on those sentences and sent them out. None of the sentences applied in this situation legally, just to let you know. But the brain's just like that. The brain is just like that. If you start thinking, oh my God, we could be sued, the brain starts cherry picking thoughts about how bad this lawsuit could be. Then the thoughts come in about how, we could lose this house, which is really my partner's money, and we could lose my daughter's house, and, cherry picking thoughts from a limited idea. Another thing I've observed about AI is, and there's many times I've had to just stop a conversation with AI, close it, open it, and then continue. Because the longer you talk to AI, the more likely it is to be wrong. I don't know if you guys have discovered that yet. They call it a hallucination is the term they use for it. There's another term I don't remember. But what happens, the way AI works, is it starts looking at its own outputs, what it's sharing with you, as part of the factual research, I'll say. And it starts building on its own ideas without verifying that its own ideas were accurate in the first place. So the longer you talk to AI, the more likely it's going to go down this rabbit hole and be wrong. And so when you're talking to AI, you got to use a hell of a lot of intuition. You got to know, okay, I've been talking to AI too long. I got to close this. I've got to provide a summary and start over. Because if you don't close and restart your session, you will start getting some very bad information. It's the brain too. The longer the brain chatters on a topic, the more likely it is to be wrong. It's believing its own BS. Exactly. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. So if you let that brain chatter for 4 weeks about a potential lawsuit, you're going to have so much crap in your mind. We do not understand that the brain, as magnificent as it is also highly faulty. Highly faulty. Just like artificial intelligence, it is no different. And so we're believing what everything our brain is saying as if it's right. It's not right. It's a biological artificial intelligence. And it is wired for a negative bias. It is wired to protect us from potential threats, whether those threats exist or not. It is just a program. And it's just functioning like a program. It's not who we are. And then the body, the nervous system, it's like the brain is the director of the orchestra and the body is the instruments and it just plays. The body is so neutral and innocent, it's ridiculous. The brain starts firing these ideas about a lawsuit and the orchestra plays. Just like the brain starts firing ideas of devotion and the orchestra plays. That's important, guys. That's important. Some people want to think the devotion is real and the fear is not. They're both the same process. What's real doesn't have qualities to it. What's real isn't affected by the brain or its current interpretation of the situation. But if we lean into what's real, somehow we know that next right step. I can't explain that. I just know it over and over and over again for the past 21 years. That's worked. I call it intuition. I've called it Holy Spirit. I've called it spiritual wisdom. I don't know what it is, but it's there and it works and it's right. And it has nothing to do with the way this brain is programmed to work or conditioned to work. And Liz says, now what she sees as her job is to move forward with undoing the brain's conditioning. And I think that I did a lot of that in my initial purification process. You know what that initial purification process was? It was undoing a lot of conditioning, especially the I am bad belief. The truth is not true belief. That's just brain conditioning. And a lot of it was undone. Therefore, it doesn't really have an effect on me anymore. But that's brain conditioning. And depending on how much brain conditioning you undo prior to your awakening, you may have more or less to undo after your awakening. But that has nothing to do with the awakening. That's the brain. And it will affect experience. Do you see what I'm saying here? There is a difference between the brain, the body, and experience, one hand, and truth, which is none of those things. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, I think it totally benefits everyone, just like Liz is like, I think I need to work on this brain conditioning now. I think it's beneficial to work on the brain conditioning too, because it does color the experience and the experience is still here. But you will see the experience from a different point of view post-awakening than you will pre-awakening. Pre-awakening, you're like this. And post-awakening, there's some distance, even though you're still going right through it. It's more like a fabric. You're still going right through it. You feel everything. You see everything, right? I mean, you're not separate from the experience, but it's different. I don't know how to tell you. You're not this, right? But the experience is based on the brain. I have come to see I am not the body. In A Course in Miracles, that sentence, let's see. I am not the body. What's that sentence? I am not the body. I am free. I am still as God created me. Something like that. Yeah. I have come to see I am not the body as really meaning I am not the brain. That's our primary confusion. Our primary confusion is thinking we are the brain, and we're not. And the more I learn about the brain, the more I'm certain that's true. The more I observe the brain, the more I'm certain that's true. It is just a biological, artificial intelligence, and it is nothing more. And the whole sense of self is created in the brain. I did a homily on that about a year ago, if you want to go look it up. I also did a homily, I think, in March about how thoughts are not real. They're subconsciously believed to be real, but they're not real. You can go look that up too, because both of those homilies would be very closely related to this one. I might recommend listening to this and those two in 1 week to get a full picture, right? I don't think I have anything else to say. I'd like to wrap this up with a nice bow, but I don't have a conclusion. Maybe my song is the conclusion. Let's see what song I picked. Oh, Little Drummer Boy. Okay, I felt like doing Christmas songs, but let me tell you why I picked Little Drummer Boy. And by the way, the brain is a useful tool because when my mind said do the next right step, that often involved having to read something, understand it, and write it in an email. I use the brain for that, just to let you know. AI helped me pick out Little Drummer Boy. So AI is also useful. So that's what's interesting about these artificial intelligences. They can be very faulty and they can be very useful, and it's up to us to know the difference. But I told AI I told AI what this homily was about, and that I wanted to do a Christmas song because it's December. And like, are there any Christmas songs that fit with this? And AI came back with Little Drummer Boy. And said, if you really listen to Little Drummer Boy, the Little Drummer Boy is scared. He thinks, his gift is not good enough. And yet he walks right through that fear and plays that song anyway. I thought, oh, that's perfect. He does the next right thing. He plays the song. And then I found this wonderful video performed by, I think they're a Christian group called For King and Country. And in it, you see the Little Drummer Boy marching right through a war, just marching along playing. So it's like the symbol of he's marching right through that fear and just keeps doing the next right thing. So I'm going to ask Marisol to play that. I do want to remind you all that Marisol puts a link in the chat that will enable us to donate to Awakening Together. So if you don't have a monthly donation, or even if you do and you feel like donating more now, but especially if you don't have a monthly donation, and especially if you enjoy Awakening Together, but you just keep forgetting to give that money, please consider clicking on that link and donating, because Awakening Together is dependent on your donations. All right, Marisol, if you would play the Little Drummer Boy for us, that'd be great. Thank you. Super, thank you. So this is the part of the weekly gathering where you all get to share if you want to share. So is there anyone here who would like to say something? All right, Regis.
All right, I'll try. I hope my mic is working. Good morning, everyone. All right, so it is working. I saw some people waving. Yeah, thank you, Regina, for this transparency of your sharing. It's perfect. In fact, I told someone about a week and a half ago, I was talking to some guys, because lately people keep asking me what I'm thinking or how I feel about something. And I made the statement, I'm like, I don't really care about what I think about it. And they just like got really confused. I'm serious. I'm like, my brain, my mind does not run the show. It's like, and I've been discovering in the last few months that these are just body sensations, and the brain is trying to give it a story. And like you said, it's the same feeling that if I was falling in love all over again and had all the butterflies in my stomach, it's the same as being scared shitless. And it's just a story that's going on. At the end of August, my spouse and we went our separate ways, and she left, I stayed. And my monthly expenses doubled because we've been doing a shared income for all these years. And the fear that can come in, I quickly started noticing it. Oh, this ain't my head, this is my body. Actually, my head is really okay. But my head is trying to, just like you said with AI, is trying to connect a story, because when my brain have felt these, when my body has produced these feelings and nerves and muscle tensions in the past, the AI brain wants to give it this story. And I'm like, no, that's not why I'm feeling this. This is just the body in response to the body. And so what you said have really uh just kind of bring that all together, because I haven't really shared this with anyone, what's going on, but I just began a real intense period of noticing. And like you say, the next step, because the brain won't say, oh, now you got to do this, now you got to do this. And in this process, I think I've taken care of the expenses myself for the last 3 months. And I even quit a job during this period. So you would say, the brain would say, no, you need to go to this job every day. You don't need to quit this job. You need this money, but that wasn't the next right step. The next right step was for me to be still and to be very clear. And that's exactly what I've been doing. And so when the brain is out of it, you'll be surprised at what those next steps are, but they'll present themselves very clearly, and they'll work out perfectly, despite the reprogramming of how the mind is responding and wants to react to situations. So it's really been a very interesting process, to know that I'm safe, everything is safe, I'm prospering, everything is wonderful, and to not let the mind, based on these previous years of programming, come in and take over and run the situation that I'm living through at this present time. So I really get what you're saying. I hope I related to it in a good way this morning. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you did, Regis. I think that shows that you've kind of been going through the same thing. So thank you very much, Regis, for sharing. And John, the mic is yours.
Good morning. Yeah, it's interesting, the perspective that is given when we look at these things that that may show on up. I mean, for me, I went through about a year of just intense fear, and it wasn't quite that long, but it felt like it. It felt like several years actually, and but the gift from that was to see fear as, to learn to see it as just a feeling. And the other thing that I really liked was when you talked about how we went from this, or how you went from this intense this is me, to just a little bit of separation. Because I could look at it and go, wow, I see that fear that appears to be happening, or that is happening, but there's a separation here. And I'm going, wow, that's freaking weird. That's, as a matter of fact, it started me going, I think they call that dissociation. Maybe I need to talk to my shrink about that. But that separation is what lets you know that that's not you. There's that space in between. And then just real quickly, I wanted to say it's funny because I had tears come to my eyes when I'm watching the Little Drummer song. I'm going, what's that about? And what I realized was, here's this kid coming to God, to awareness, was the only thing that was available to him at that time, and that was his drum. And here's our opportunity to come to each day with what's available to us. And some days it's just a drum, some days it's just a beat, but you play it and you do it, and it's good enough. It's exactly enough. It's perfection in its own.
Yeah.
And some days it's just getting up and cleaning the house, and some days it's getting up and sitting in the middle of the mess, whichever it may be. And they're all perfect. So yeah, thanks for the homily, Regina, and happy holidays, guys.
Yeah, happy holidays. And I want to make one comment on something that John said. He sounded like he was kind of joking. He said something about, is this disassociation? Maybe I need to talk to my shrink about that. That's a thought that my biological artificial intelligence gave me once as I was beginning to experience more and more detachment. I see other people shaking their heads too. Yeah, it's, so I'm just becoming, disassociative, and this is not safe, So I actually both looked that up and talked to inner guidance about it, and became very clear on the difference between spiritual detachment that occurs naturally as we go through this process and disassociation. You ready for this? Disassociation is a fear response. So when you're afraid of something, you push it away, you disassociate. It's not the natural detachment that occurs, and you can feel the difference, right? This natural detachment that's occurring as we're letting go of our ego more and more is a completely different feeling. So I just thought I would share that. And I'm glad I did, because I saw several people shaking their heads about that thought. I need to go. I don't know if you've noticed my chair jerking a bit. That's Ellie bumping up against my chair saying it's time for breakfast. She knows Ron has breakfast ready out there, and she gets a little bit of bacon. So I got to get her out there. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.